Good morning, committee members and other parties of interest. This is a oral presentation for RPS-25-00191, Architectural/Engineering Services for Brandon Fire Station Number 11 replacement. Is being held in part by means of communications media technology. Active participation will be for committee members and presenting firms only. A recording of the meeting will be made available to the public and all other interested parties after the meeting has ended. Please be advised that the code of silence is still in effect. All meetings and correspondence must include me. My name is Ethan Kersey, and I'm the senior buyer for this project. Again, for the record, this meeting is being recorded and has been publicly noticed. At this time, I will ask each committee member to introduce themselves for the record, beginning with the committee chair.
Sarah Williams with Capital Programs, Architectural Services Manager.
Master Yazdi, Capital Programs, Architecture Services Section.
Mario Bola, Capital Programs and Architect.
Hillsborough, Chris Randall, Hillsborough County Fire Rescue Infrastructure Development Manager.
Thank you, guys. Our presenters will have a total of 30 minutes, 15 minutes for presentation and 15 for Q&A. I'll be timing the presentation and we'll announce when there are 2 minutes left remaining in your presentation. Immediately following the presentation, we'll move on to the question period. I will also track your time there and provide a 2-minute warning once we reach the end of that period. So Wannemacher Jensen Architects, please begin your presentation. I'll start your timer once you begin talking.
All right, thank you so much for having us. This is something that's a passion of ours and our team. We have 38 people that specialize in just public safety projects, led by our own Jeff McDowell.
Jeff McDowell, Public Safety Director, and the Director of the Tampa office as well, which is right down the street in Ybor. I have around 13 years experience, almost exclusively with fire stations and public safety.
Hello, my name is Anthony Cognola. I am a licensed architect with 7 years of professional experience. And I will be the project manager for this project, and I'm happy to have just finished the Pinellas Park Public Safety Complex Fire Station number 33.
So supporting that, we have a designated QA/QC, so different architects reviewing every phase, interior designer, BIM manager. We have a backup team, Chase Myers, who you're currently working with, will be the backup project manager, project architect Michael Coy, and Stefania as project designer, along with a team of consultants that we work with all the time, Master Consulting and Dan Vikstrom, civil engineer. We have almost worked exclusively for so many years.
And CMTA is also the one we're working with on the logistics. So it's a team that you're familiar with and comfortable with.
So WJ Architects, I mean, we like to say very responsive local team, but we have kind of big firm resources to back that up. So if you need to expedite, need support, we can provide that. Local here, large amount of experience with Hillsborough County. Currently, we have 2 projects going. We've also done a range of projects from South County Regional Service Center to parks to parking garages to everything in between. 2023 Firm of the Year, 80+ fire stations that we've worked on. And that all started my first project, Randall's Island. After 9/11, we rebuilt the best fire training facility in the country. And that was my project after 9/11. After that, I've had a passion for fire stations.
Unique designs. We don't like to fall into any specific aesthetic. We work with the client and the needs to create a unique design that's tailored to you. As you can see, kind of a range from modern to, med-rev, depending on what the, need is and what the environment is. That's what we design.
From a lead standpoint, unfortunately, lead and resiliency, we tie these together. We've been tested recently. So this is the Pasadena that was used to launch boats during the last storm. And then we have Fire Station 46 directly on the beach. They were up and running about 3 hours after the stormwater receded. They called it the Community Rock. We did one of the first LEED Platinum buildings in the state of Florida. And so many of our projects have gone for LEED, Green Globes, etc. We take pride in the building actually performing beyond LEED. So LEED is just the base design, in my opinion. A building, if it really is sustainable, will look sustainable. So the materials should not need to be painted. It should be low maintenance, which actually helps your guys out in the long run. Photovoltaics, we put those on. Even this roof collects into a cistern, and then we're able to use that on site. All of the natural light in the facility, you really don't have to turn the lights on during the daytime, and we just control that within the the dorm rooms?
Just as important as lighting, we approach it in a lot of different ways, both from mock alert or Phoenix or locution alerting systems. We've used most of them throughout the state, depending on the municipality. But also for health and safety, we like to incorporate, UV lighting in the ducts to help kill any airborne bacteria and mold. As well as, lighting that adjusts to the eyes of the firefighters. So when they do get a call at night, they're not blinded by light, and it helps with sleep deprivation as well as, no one tripping on things when they're going to the apparatus.
So we think of the whole buildup from alert, building up all of the lighting systems as you go in.
Zone design, cancer prevention is huge now. We are starting to realize that, you have to separate contaminated areas from living areas. And to do that, we've, started to implement, vestibules, airlocks, and decontamination routes in and out of the clean spaces to the contaminated spaces. So you see the red would be constantly contaminated, yellow would be cycled between and cleaned. And then that would help keep all your living spaces, clean and free of toxins. Zooming in on that, here's just, a snapshot of some of the materials we use. We've implemented successfully the SpectraGlaze ceramic face CMU, which actually cuts money on install because they adhere this CMU, or they adhere the ceramic to the CMU and then install it all at once and basically just grout over it. Very, very nice looking, and you don't have to paint or seal it. Extractors we put in just about every station, so we're very versed in those. And then this is kind of a zoom in of that decon route where you have these separate showers where you can move through to a clean area before you enter into living spaces with food clean and everything else to make sure you kind of keep these separate areas. Materiality also huge. We like to make sure it's maintainable so your guys can do other things more important like training. So
Yeah, how many ceiling tiles have you replaced?
Right. We don't like to use drop skins if we don't have to. We use this Epicord deck or, different types. This is the name brand, but it's, it is what you see. It's structural, plus it has a acoustic performance element to it, and we can use it in the apparatus bay or in the living spaces. You can see we have a CMU brick unit that doesn't need to be painted. We did go visit 45. We saw that reference when we did some research. We wanted to see, some of your other stations to make sure, we were keeping up with what your standards are. So we did. We took a tour. Very, very nice gentlemen. They chose around. We just did kind of a comparison to that and what we're doing now. We noticed we typically like to do the trench drains. It's a little better for collecting, and then you can make you don't have as many slopes to worry about. And then polishing it also is much easier to clean than trying to clean a broom finished surface. We found that it's been very successful in the current stations.
We also have the air hog exhaust removal system and that we can talk a little bit more.
Right. There's a kind of example too. This is Fire Station 7 in St. Pete. You can see all the natural light, but it's filtered light, so it's not direct. The acoustical ceilings and the brick with the plywood millwork. This is supposed to be harder than concrete. It's actually laminated sheets of bamboo, so it's very durable. And
there's no plastic laminate in the entire fire station. And basically, if you go back to one of these stations,
it's not changing.
10 years later, it looks.
And it's just an example of how we do our interior spaces. This is kitchen, very used spot. Again, very clean, polished concrete quartz. Next is Clearwater. You can see how we do our pantries. We like to put everything in a lockable pantry, including the refrigerator. That way it also cleans up your space a lot. But we all know firefighters will, share food. But they won't take anything else, obviously, but food's up for grabs. As an example of our dorms, same kind of concept, same materiality. We have that brick wall exposed, so you don't have to paint that as well.
Yeah, workstation, even the space underneath the bed is like 3 drawers that you can have additional storage.
Here's one of our bathrooms in Pasadena that we did. We like to do floor to ceiling tile. And our cost per square foot remains the same. We use, it looks expensive, but it's really not expensive. We have tons of reps that we go through. This you can actually have a hose bib in it, and you can hose down the whole thing because it's just all tile and concrete. Here's a gym that we just did. One important thing we want to note for this is the visibility in and out. So we have window to the bay. We have a window from the dorm rooms in, or not dorm rooms, the day rooms in, and from outside. So if officer has a cardiac arrest or any kind of issue, you can be seen and they can be helped right away. So that's a big issue. That's been brought up
And
over.
and the height with the stair steps, you don't want to have to remove tile just to get your stair step.
But comparable sizes, we just want to show kind of the difference between the two. Here's that spectrum glazed tile I wanted to show you. I don't want to touch that. And the EMS room and the storage with the workbench also. One thing we noticed that you had a safe place plaque on the outside, but we're one of the only firms to implement the Safe Haven baby boxes and 2 stations right now, and we're working on a 3rd. I know there's funding coming up for that. So we do have a lot of experience with that, as well as talking to your guys. They said, you know, during the last storms, people had to come in on air mattresses. So we also have incorporated Murphy beds into, you know, different areas. So if you have, you know, excess personnel for a storm, they have a comfortable place to sleep. So we kind of went overboard on your site. We wanted to see what we could do with it preliminarily. And we really wanted to see if we could get those pull-through bays for you, if it was even feasible. So this is interesting, and I think our favorite, because it keeps your whole station operational during construction. You don't need temporary facilities while this is being constructed. This is obviously assuming that we have these two parcels, which I think you already have. And then once this is done, we could demo and just transfer over. Easy. We did a few more site plans. It's kind of showing just the circulation. We would, you know, maintain this existing parking as much as possible. So we could save money with that. Once we demo, we just have to fill it in back here. You know, very tight, straight shots to the apparatus bay to meet that 90 seconds turnout time. And then we've thought you could, you know, double load the EMS so you could exit both sides and have those, you know, extra bays. And here, you know, obviously we would work with you to develop an aesthetic, but this is just kind of our first pass to, you know, show you some of the features as well as sustainable characteristics where we could incorporate, you know, solar panels if the budget permitted, rain gardens, bioswales, electrical charging, you know, enhanced air quality strategies as well for, you know, clean indoor space. And it's just another kind of diagram of how you would enter and exit in the context of the neighborhood. So kind of shows having this entire site.
Yeah.
And then how you would go in and out.
Even when you demo, you can use the one side during the site plan, once you demo this building.
Yeah, you can just exit out of the opposite side. Okay, and there's just the, you know, quick rendering that we did to kind of show some of the possibilities. We wanted to keep in, you know, the same aesthetic as some of your other stations, but maybe a little more modern. We also looked at renovation of the existing for phase 2. So this is your existing apparatus bay. We could construct onto it, next to it, and then obviously demo in phase 3 of the existing living spaces. That would require at least a temporary apparatus cover or canopy while we're renovating. But, you know, we could demo this, move over to that, and you would have, you know, all functionality from that side.
But one thing we realized is that these bays are really
They're tight.
right? Yeah, right. They shouldn't be that narrow. I'm sure you trust your guys, but not that much, right?
And the same similar floor plan, we just kind of rotated it. This is interesting because you have your dorms perpendicular to the bay, so you don't have any turns. Just a straight shot to the bay, which is usually the quickest route. And it's very conservative on the site too. I think, you know, you have future development and the other parcels if we wanted to move the swale somewhere else. And then the third, we wanted to kind of think outside the box. It's like, how can we renovate this existing and give you a pull-through bay? So what we thought is we could reconfigure it and put, you know, open it up on the sides, put new apparatus bay doors in, and then, you know, demo the rear and build the new fire station. This unfortunately would, you know, require a full temporary facility with modulars, et cetera. We've done that multiple times. We did it for Clearwater and other things, so we could definitely help guide through that process.
But it is wider in that direction, and you already
Right.
have some set structural beams in
Or we could
there.
probably get those 14-foot doors in there. We'd have to, you know, field verify, but we feel it's a viable option and the most cost effective. 2 minutes, guys. All right. And then, you know, we could go through that later.
So quality control, quality management is, I feel, where we really excel as a firm. And I've been involved in this process on every project I've worked on at WJ. So we have a ton of strategies in place to make sure that we can deliver a product to you guys that is as free of errors and emissions as possible. So some of those involve, you know, third-party and internal quality control. We have a very, in-depth quality control process at every phase, every deliverable, 30%, 60%, and 90%. And with that, we also kind of lean on our in-house construction team to also provide that construction expertise very early on in the design process and throughout the design process. And then we also use cloud sharing Revit models to kind of make sure all the consultants and everyone in every discipline is on the same page.
Yes, so the proof of that is really how you deliver during construction. We track our projects, the last 25 projects. We're actually, that is a negative on the change order because including tax savings, basically, we're giving money back and that's our goal on every project. Budget, once we set a budget that is correct to your program, when we add that, we're at almost negative 9%. And we've had 10 hard bid projects with no change orders at all. Yeah, so that's our goal for your project is to go in. We've done 80 stations. We have this down to be able to do that. So that is really proof in the pudding for this project. So looking at the cost estimating, this is the full new build. So we've estimated that. You do have some less cost for some of these other options. We do have to factor in, this is all of the temporary facilities. So, it would be this number plus that number. So it brings you into very close to a new build, for this project. So I know you probably already know this, but we have to go through the process and we would do this type of process for everything that we do. So we can go over schedule if you'd like to, but for us, this is our passion. Public safety, fire stations, that is really our passion with this team to work on. We'd love the opportunity to prove ourselves.
Fantastic. So we'll move on to Q&A. So we'll start the timer again. You guys ask the first question.
I had a question on the zero change orders. What type of project delivery method were those?
That's a hard bid.
They were all hard.
Actually, the only ones we track for change orders is the hard bid. CM, you're supposed to be working as a team, and like how they track change orders, I think is a little bit different sometimes. It can be a little bit
misleading, I think.
Yeah. And the one caveat is if they do add something like, okay, hey, we have extra money and we want to add this new piece of equipment or something, obviously that's not an error and omission change order, so we don't factor that. But I think it's important to track that because your quality control and when your PMs are working that hard, you need some type of indicator that tells you how are you doing.
What's the delivery method for this? I don't think I saw it there. Was it a CMAR or?
We'd like to do a CMAR if possible.
Yeah. So with the CMARs, we didn't talk about it a lot, but our in-house construction team, we have a fully licensed construction team doing CMAR. Like we just finished the skills center over here, for instance. And they provide a second pair of eyes for you for the CMAR. So when you're reviewing, say if you change scope and you add another bay, for instance, or you add more scope during the process, well, you need to be able to vet those numbers from them. And a lot of time your architect is discounted for their, unfortunately, for our budgeting, right? But we come in with real numbers, and sometimes we give here's some additional sub coverage recommendations. So I know for the Clearwater Fire Station 46, we brought in they were having trouble getting coverage, and we went and invited about 10 additional subs to that project. We're able to take about $1.5 million out of that project just by getting a better sub base because we provide that to the table. So we will work hand in hand through that process with you.
Thank you, Jason. Thank you for a really nice presentation. We're going back to option number 1. Come on. So, yeah. Okay. I just want to repeat second. What is the distance from the setback and the building from the property line?
We have a 10-foot right here, and we're over that by about probably 12.5, I believe.
Yeah. So
And that's the other one was slammed all the way to the back.
And what is the setback up from?
Oh,
this is the 25.
That's 25. Yeah.
So,
Yeah, which I think it's 20. It limited how far out we could come, especially with the apparatus bay.
So unfortunately, that one, maybe it's not, of course, we are not in design, right?
Sure.
Everything design. But the problem is that we have a buffering requirements, which is 20 feet buffers, required between residential and building. So that one defeat the purpose right there. So, and of course, front setback, I believe is 25 or 30 feet. So we already constrained on this one. Really, I like this concept right here, what you see, but unfortunately, it's not gonna work. Well, fact is that the side is sloping from south to the north. Okay, and that one, the parking being that side, of course, is gonna be problematic too, because drainage I'm talking about, so anyway. But I like that concept, but unfortunately, I don't know how it's gonna work for us. If we can,
I think we have some room to put up. I think the 20 line was up here.
Yeah, I think we do have some.
I get 5 feet if we need a 20 feet buffer, but we were considering an issue either way because of the existing station being all on the line. So either way,
Yeah.
even if we renovate, we're gonna have that issue with the existing facility.
that's correct.
So, I don't know, variance or waivers could be optional considering it's a existing condition.
I mean, we would improve it from the existing conditions. I think you do have a really strong case for a variance on this one.
We did have Dan Bickstrom look at it too, and he gave us.
Yeah, if we can justify for the variance, I mean, let's say if you guys got this project.
Sure.
So then we can talk about, the justification for the.
We can look at different siding options too. I mean, I think we have room to adjust it. This was really based on that, existing station, trying to make sure we can keep it operational. But with the north, I think we can, that's the only thing. I think they said you were trying to get this parcel as well, right?
No,
No?
We're not,
No, no.
if we don't have to.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think you have to. Like this design and thinning up this dimension, if you ever see West Manatee, we had an even tighter site for that. And it feels good, like the spaces feel good inside to get that down, so.
Yeah, we can.
One of the things that'll be a challenge for us here is we've dealt enough with fire departments, they each have their own preferences and idiosyncrasies on how to do things. Traditionally, we've been reluctant to have to make a 90 to intersect with the right of way. We prefer just to be straight perpendicular. So why we want to drive through, I think that will overweigh that preference, but it's something we would have to coordinate. And we also have a Quint, a long truck here too, so we'd want to make sure the turning radiuses and all that. which I think
We assumed a 100-foot aerial with a 47.
Wow, yeah, you're good. Yeah.
So this is a 47-foot outside
It
radius.
should be great.
And one thing we can look at is, depending on what, variance we look at, I mean, you could look at tilting
Yeah, good
the
angle.
apparatus bay and doing, an angle out.
Straight shot out.
where is existing fire station airlines to do this?
To go.
So yeah,
We have
this
one slide.
here,
I think it's the first one, yeah.
Yeah.
No.
but we did run the auto turn with the worst case scenario for all of that, yeah.
So for scenario 2, though, if we were to keep the apparatus bay, I heard you say that you think it's too narrow. Is there anything else you think would be
I-
problematic with keeping?
If you're gonna keep the existing, bays, I think you have two options. I don't think you can live with how narrow they are. You
They're
build it,
12
you put
foot.
this much money in a station, you can't do it.
Hardening it.
Yeah. So the final option, I do believe is a viable option. Right now you have some large clear story windows on the sides there. You have way more width in that direction to be able to accommodate that. So I think this is a very, viable option. The other thing that we didn't even show, the other secondary, if you just wanted to keep a portion of the building, was essentially it's a flip flop and do the living quarters in the existing apparatus bay. So you build up the living quarters, we do a temporary apparatus bay, and then we, come back and build an appropriate apparatus bay, which could be head on, next to it here. So I think that's the two options that you have if you really want to keep that bay intact or reuse some of that.
Talking about
Can I go?
No, go ahead.
Yeah, go
Let's go back.
So spatial relationships and materiality, since, you know, they talk more about spatial relationships, I want to talk a little bit about. Chris always points out that fire stations they get handled,
Yep.
right? They get manhandled.
Mhm.
So your experience, I saw you showed a image of a fire station that you did 10 years ago. And it seems as if you pay a lot of attention to the low maintenance lead,
Mhm.
all that sort of stuff, but what sort of cost impact does that have? And are you able to project like life cycle costs based on that? Secondarily, you mentioned a lot about the circulation and decontamination versus contaminated spaces and anti-rooms and all that sort of stuff. That adds square footage also. So how does all that play into the overall budget? I know you put out some budget numbers at the end.
Yeah.
I just want to understand the impact.
Well, yeah, great comments. So starting with the materials, put more time in good design and less time, just covering things, right? So we put a better material, but then we're getting rid of furring, chipboard, paint. We put in a better deck. You're already using deck. But yes, it's going to be more expensive to use an acoustical deck. But we're getting rid of all of your acoustical tiles. We're getting rid of other layers below it. So the reason it looks the same 10, 15 years back, when we go and visit the stations, it's amazing. I mean, they look like they just were completed 6 months ago. But those are all things that aren't meant to last really even 10 years, looking good, right? And so by removing all those extra materials, we're just putting that money back into better, more durable materials. So the cost impact has not been, any different from a station that we've seen done by our competitors. We're just putting more energy into the systems, like, okay, we're gonna sidewall this system, but we save ductwork, from running the ductwork over. So
More trade-offs.
more trade-offs, but I think honestly, it just takes more, coordination, our team, making sure that we don't have exposed conduits, exposed ductwork everywhere, and just being more conscious of that.
And we're very efficient with space too. Like we don't waste a lot of space with circulation. You see, we incorporate. Then you got the short version. Typically, we'll go through this in our longer presentations, but we'll incorporate the circulation into living spaces, so we're not, adding on. For Dunedin 61, we did an evaluation for them. We were able to cut by reconfiguring it just with the floor plan. We cut around 900 square feet out of the budget, which was they were able to get 3 bays instead of 2. So stuff like that, and just being clever with materials and space.
When you walk into our stations, you don't see corridors. You just don't, right? And that's corridors that your guys have to make 190, turn. That's one more turn in time and then your turnout, right? So none of the living spaces you will feel like corridors at all. And that space goes into it. So in comparison to our competitors, we've seen them, all the way from 10 to 15% of corridor circulation space, and ours are more in that 8 to 7 range.
I mean, obviously, there's going to be corridors and dorm rooms, but wherever we can use them, that space we use them.
Did I miss part of your question?
Just if you want to talk a little bit about, I mean, you talked about your approach to sustainability, but cost impact also, and also
if I think,
life cycle.
yeah, I think, even like mechanical systems, we make sure that they're zonable. We use a lot of variable refrigerant usually to help with that. So we know that your firefighters like to have it at 50 something degrees, in their dorm rooms, but the rest of it we need to separate. So it's some of the energy savings is also thinking about how they use it.
So you have like the clean and dirty system too, right?
Right, and so with that, with the decon, those systems are separated, they're on their own system, they're not part of the rest of the system. But again, the variable refrigerant allows us to get that smaller size efficiency with those. And then even with the gear room, we're using a desert air, we're dehumidifying that as well. So I think your main cost for lead is certification itself. It's the engineering, it's the submission. That is your extra cost. Everything else, we're building into the station. Our basic station will get you LEED certified to a solar level.
And with your QAQC, or QAQC with, just asking about consultants using that. My experience, structural engineers don't want to use BIM, mechanical engineers hardly want to use it, electrical engineers definitely don't.
But
So you guys have been able to find people that want to do that?
if they don't want to use it, they're not working with us.
Okay.
So they're using BIM 360. We're all in the same model. That's a requirement of their contract to work through. So we have the class detection, you know,
They could make sure they have at least a 300 LOD or higher, to make sure we get
Yeah.
good coordination in the drawings and proper clash detection. Otherwise, it's not thought out.
we're doing one of the first digital twins in the state right now with University of Florida. So like, yeah, our team focuses on it. We have 3 people just dedicated to BIM that if those consultants need help with that, we put them together.
One more question from me. On that billboard, they get a lot of abuse.
Right.
What do you guys normally use for this?
So this is this plywood material that we like to use. So it's compressed bamboo that basically use leftover bamboo material. So it's very sustainable from that standpoint, high resiliency. But it doesn't peel. There's no laminate. So like your belts don't catch on it, nothing catches on it. And even after say 15, 20 years, if you need to refinish it, or if you get something that you need to fix, like you can actually refinish it.
Sounds like phenomenal or something.
Like,
A lot of resin.
yeah, it's very there's not a ton of resin in the process. It's just high compression, but it's the PSI on it is almost 5,000.
Yeah.
It's incredibly hard, so you scratching it is not going to hold. But that's one of the things, like our furniture, specifying furniture that doesn't catch on belts, specifying laminate. Like we just went through, it's like, what is everything that gets abused in the fire station? How can we get rid of it? I'm amazed that like when you go into a fire station, how did that hole get into the drywall? Nobody knows, but if you don't have as much drywall in the station, then you don't have to worry about it as much.
Well, thank you, guys. That is the time. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording here and we'll finish this presentation. I'll finish it.
Concluding.
Now it's your turn.
Thank you.